the relevant portions in his own variant, and the addition of those two names of the list of famous English writers. I knew the editor already from a visit he had paid the minister a few days earlier. A greasy-looking man. He had at first seemed uneasy about my presence in the room, and I had kept a sharp lookout for the slightest hint from Chief Nanga to get up and leave them, but no hint was given. On the contrary, I felt he positively wanted me to stay, so I stayed. Our visitor took a very long time to come to the point. Wherever it was, all I could gather was that he had access to something which was holding back in Chief Nanga's interest, but it was clear that the minister did not attach very great importance to whatever it was. In fact, he appeared to be sick and tired of the men, but dared not say so. Meanwhile, the journalist told us one story after another. It is disgusting white foam appearing at the corners of his mouth. He drank 2 bottles of beer, smoked many cigarettes, and then got a dash of £5 from the minister after an account of his trouble with his landlord over areas of rent. Apparently it was not a straightforward case of debt, but since the landlord and the journalist came from different tribes, the element of tribalism could not be ruled out. So you see what it means to be minister, said Chief Nanga as soon as his visitors had left. His voice sounded strangely tired, and I felt suddenly sorry for him. This was the nearest I had seen him come to despondency. If I don't give him something now, tomorrow he will go and write rubbish about me. They say it is the freedom of the press, but to me it is nothing short of the freedom to crucify innocent men and assassinate their character. I don't know why our government is so afraid to deal with them. I don't say they should not criticize. After all, no one is perfect except God, but they should criticize constructively. So that other afternoon, then the journalist came forward to get a copy of the speech and shouted, "First rate, sir. I shall put it in the front page instead of the story I have promised the Minister of Construction. I just wondered if suspected that." Worry, and the story will be if Chief Nanga had his way. It must have been about 8 o'clock. It was certainly dark when we left the exhibition to drive back home. As soon as the car moved, I deflated my fingers into Alice on her lap and threw the other arm across her shoulders in a bold, property gesture. That was a beautiful speech, and you didn't have much time to go over it, I said, just to get some talk going, while privately I throbbed with expectation. An image that had never until then entered my mind appeared to me now. I saw Elsie, or rather didn't see her, as she merged so completely with the darkness of my room, unlike Jean, who had remained half undissolved like some apparition, as she put her things on the dark. When an old woman hears the dance, she knows her old age deserts her, replied Chief Nanga in our language. I laughed more loudly than the proverb deserved, and then translated it for Elsie, who spoke a different language, who used the laughter to get a little closer, so that the arm I had over her shoulder slipped under her arm to the breast, and I pressed her against my side. When we got back, Chief Nanga and I had whiskey, while Elsie went upstairs to change, and incidentally, when on our first turn return from the hospital, Chief Nanga told his steward to take Elsie's bag to his absent wife's room. I had been greatly alarmed about that. short flight of stairs between my room on the ground floor and where Elsie was being installed. When all was silent, I would go up quietly, tap on her door, find her waiting, and take her downstairs to my room, and we could pretend that our host was none the wiser. We had an excellent dinner of rice, ripe plantains, and fried. Elsie, looking ripe, reading ripe, and ready in a shimmering yellow dress, took us back to the president of the Writers Association and his funny crap. I found myself putting up a feeble kind of defense. Writers and artists sometimes behave that way. I said, I think he will heed my advice, said Chivananga. He's a well-comported young man. This surprised me a great deal. I suppose it was your use of flattering words in introducing the minister that did it, or more likely Chivananga had not missed the almost differential manner in which one of the ambassadors had approached Yalio with a copy of his book for an autograph. I remember looking at Chivananga then and seeing astonishment and unbelief on his face, but I did not think it was enough to persuade him to call Yolio a well-comported young man. So soon after their clash, the words well-comported struck me almost as purposely as the sentiment they conveyed. I couldn't say whether it was right or wrong, and in any case you felt once again that such distinctions didn't apply here. Chivananga was one of those fortune ones who had just enough English and not one single word more to have his say strongly without inhibition and colorfully. I remember his telling me of a fatal accident he once had driving from Anata to Puri. Since he was alive, I had assumed that someone else had been killed, but as the story unfolded, I realized that fatal meant no more than very serious. I retired soon after dinner so that the others might take the cue, and Elsie did the second time I peeped out. She was no longer there in the sitting room, but Chivananga sat on solidly looking at the file of the speech she had already given. Every 2 minutes or so I came to the door and peeped out, and there he was. Could he be asleep now? His eyes seemed to be moving across the page. I was getting quite angry. Why didn't he take the blessed file to his study? But perhaps what hurt me most was the fact that I could not muster up sufficient bravado to step into the sitting room and up the stairs. Perhaps he even expected me to do so. Let me say that I do not normally like a resolution in this kind of situation, but Chivananga had, as it were, cramped my style from the very first by introducing an element of delicacy into the affair, thus making it not so much a question of my own resolution as of my willingness to parade endlessly before a third person as a common slut. So there must nothing for it be waiting. Anger, I sat on my bed, got up again, and paced my room barefoot and in pyjama. It seemed a full hour before Chivananga finally switched the lights off. I gave him about 5 to 10 minutes to settle down in his bed, while I had time to steady myself from the strain of the last hour and the unsettling effect which imminent fulfillment always has on me. Then I began to tiptoe upstairs, running my palm up the wooden railing for guidance. By the time I got to the landing, my eyes were fairly at home in the darkness, and it was easy finding Elsie's door. My hand was already on the knob when I heard voices within. I was transfixed to the spot. Then I heard laughter and immediately turned around and went down the stairs again. I did not go into my room straight away, but stood for long minutes in the sitting room. What went in my place. I decided to give him a minute or two more and then, discarding this pussy-footed business, go up boldly and knock on Elsie's door. I went back to my room to wait, switched on the bedside lamp, which was worked by a short silver rope instead of a normal switch. Looked at my watch, which I had taken off and put on a bedside stool. It was already past 10:30. This stung me into activity again. I hadn't thought it was so late. I rushed into the sitting room and made to bound up when I heard us from a great distance, deliriously screaming. Difficult in retrospect to understand why inaction at that moment, a sort of paralysis, had spread over my limbs while an intense pressure was building up inside my chest, but before it reached the raging point, I felt it siphon it off, leaving me empty inside and out. I trudged up the stairs in the incredible delusion that Elsie was calling on me to come and save her from her ravisher, but when I got to the door, a strong revulsion and hatred swept over me, and I turned sharply away and went down the stairs for the last time. I sat on my bed and tried to think with my head in my hands, but a huge sledgehammer was beating down on my brain as on an anvil, and my thoughts were scattering sparks. I soon realized that what was needed was action, quick, sharp action. I rose to my feet and willed myself about gathering my things into the suitcase. I had no clear idea what I would do next, but for the moment that did not trouble me. The present loomed so large. I brought down my clothes one at a time from the wardrobe, folded them and packed them neatly. Then I brought my things from the bathroom and put them away. These simple operations must have taken me a long time to complete, and all of that time I did not think anything particularly. I just bit my lower lip until it was sore. Occasionally words like "good heavens" escaped me and came out loud. When I had finished packing, I slumped down in the chair and then got up again and went out into the sitting room to see if the sounds were still coming. But all was now dark and quiet upstairs. My words, I remember saying then, I want to wait for Elsie, for I knew she would come down shedding tears of shame, and I would kick her out and bang the door after her forever. I waited and waited, and then, strange as it may sound, dozed off. When I started awake, I had that dull heavy terror of knowing that something terrible had happened without immediately remembering what it was. Of course, the uncertainty lasted only 1 second or less. Recollection and panic followed soon enough, and then the humiliating wound came alive again and began to burn more fresh than when first inflicted. My watch said a few minutes past 4, and Elsie had not come. My eyes missed it, a thing that had not happened to me in God knows how long. Anyway, the tears hung back. I took off my pajamas, got into another clothes, and left the room by the private door. I walked for hours, keeping to the well-lit streets. The dew settled on my head and helped to numb my feelings. Soon my nose began to run, and as I hadn't brought a handkerchief, I blew it into the roadside drain by closing additional stress in turn with my first finger. As down came, my head began to clear a little, and I saw Boris steering. I met a light soil man carrying his bucket of ordure on top of a portrait felt had drawn down to his upper face, while his nose and mouth were masked with a piece of black cloth like a gangster. I saw beggars sleeping under the eaves of luxurious department stores, and the lunatic sitting wide awake by the basket of garbage he called his possession. The first red buses running empty passed me, and I watched the street light go off finally around around 6 I drank in all these details with the early morning air. It was strange perhaps that a man who had so much on his mind should find time to pay attention to the small inconsequential things. It was like the man in the proverb who was carrying the carcass of an elephant on his head and searching with his toys for a grasshopper, but that was how it happened. It seemed that no thoughts, no matter how great, had the power to exclude all others. As I walked back to the house, I tried in vain to find the kind of force I needed to speak to Chief Gunanga. As for Elsie, I should have known that she was a common harlot, and the less said about her, the better. Chief Gunanga was outside his gate, apparently looking out for me when I came round the last bend. He happened just then to be looking in the opposite direction and did not see me at once. My first reaction on seeing him was to turn back. Fortunately, I did not give in to that kind of panic. In any case, he turned around just then, saw me, and began to come toward me. "Where have you been, Odile?" he asked. "I have been looking for you. I nearly found it 9-9. Talk to me again," I said. "What? Wonders will never end. What is wrong, Odile?" I said, "Don't talk to me again," I replied as coolly as possible. "Wonders will never end. Is it about the girl? But you told me you are not serious with her." "I asked you because I don't like any misunderstanding." "I thought you were tired and had gone to sleep." "Look here, Mr. Naka, respect yourself. Don't provoke me anymore unless you want our names to come out in the newspapers today." Even to myself, I sounded strange. Chief Naka was really taken aback, especially when I called him Mr. "You have won today," I continued, "but watch it. I will have the last laugh I never forget." Elsie was standing at the door with arms folded across her bust. When I came in at the gate, she immediately rushed indoors and disappeared. When I brought out my suitcase, Shunanga, who had not said another word since I insulted him, came forward and tried to put a hand on my shoulder in one last effort at reconciliation. "Don't touch me," I eased my shoulders away like one avoiding a leper's touch. He immediately recoiled, his smile hardened on his face, and I was happy. "Don't be childish, Odile," he said paternally. "After all, she is not your wife. What is all this nonsense? She told me there is nothing between you and she, and you told me the same thing. But anyway, I'm sorry if you are offended. The mistake is mine. I tender a reserved apology. If you like, I can bring you 6 girls this evening. You go to the thing, so that you go back, say, oh no, and again, what the country," I said. "You call yourself Minister of Culture, God help us," and I spat not a full spit-potted token at Peyton mistakenly one. "Look here, Odile," he turned on me then like an insensate new bird. "I will not stomach any nonsense from any small boy for the sake of a common woman. You hear? If you insult me again, I will show you pepper. You young people of today are very ungrateful. Imagine, anyway, don't insult me again." "Oh, you can do fuck all," I said. "You're just a bush." I cut myself short and walked out, lumbering my suitcase past Togo, the one-eyed stalwart who had presumably heard our voices and come out from the boys' quarters in his sleeping loinclothes to investigate. "Now this boy Teala, so for Master and Face," I heard him ask. "Don't mind the stupidity," said Chief Nanga. "Ain't no fit to insult Master like that here, and comfort free gay. My friend," he shouted, coming up to me. "Are you there?" His voice was full of menace. I was then halfway to the outside gate. I turned boldly around, but on a second thought said nothing, turned again and continued leave to go, make a bad luck to go. Not my own mistake for being a mere ungrateful ingrate. I was now at the gate, but his voice was loud and I heard every word. I took a taxi to my friend Maxwell's address. Maxwell Kulamu, a lawyer, had been my classmate at the grammar school. We called him Kulamax to call Max in those days, and his best friend still did. He was the poet laureate of our school, and I still remember the famous closing couplet of the poem he wrote when our school beat our rivals in the intercollegiate soccer competition. Hurrah, our unconquerable fullbacks. The writer of these lines is called Max. He was already fully dressed for court, stripped trousers and was eating breakfast when I arrived. The few words I spoke to Nanga and the very long taxi ride had combined to make it possible for me to wear a possible face. Good gracious, Max shouted, shaking my hand violently. Diligent, Nair, I be this. Diligent was a version of what I had born at school, called Max. I greeted him in return. The writer of these lines, we laughed and the tears I had not shed last night came to my eyes. Max suspected nothing, and even though I was just coming from home, I told him, rather shamefacedly, that I had been in town for the past few days, but hadn't found it possible to contact him. He took this to be a reference to his having no telephone in the house, a fact which in turn would be a reflection on his practice. I have been on the waiting list for a telephone for 2 months, he said defensively. You see, I have not given anyone a bribe, and I don't know any big gun, so you have been staying with that corrupt, empty-headed, illiterate capitalist. Sorry, no matter of can't help it, Sadina, my old teacher, you know. I was dipping my bread in the cup of hot cocoa during Max's boy had made for me. Jim Naga and Elsie already seemed so distant that I could have talked about them like casual acquaintances, but I was not going to delay Max by talking now, and in any case I had no wish to make him think that I only remembered him when I could no longer enjoy the fish pots of Chief Naga's home. Within minutes I was already feeling so relaxed and at ease here that I wondered what piece of ill fate took me to Chief Nanga in the first place. With this we finalize chapter number 7. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more videos of ASMR.